Well, welcome to Walking in Worship. My name is Dan Shields, and we are joined this afternoon by Tom and Wendy Jones. They are team members, and they've been on the team for how long? About 2 years? Something like that?
It's actually 3 this summer.
3 years.
3 years.
Only 3
Wonderful.
years?
Yeah.
Why did I think it was so much longer?
I don't know, but you haven't kicked us out yet.
So anyhow, we wanted to talk a little bit, just catch up with them, learn a little bit about who they were, and maybe get some of their perspectives on worship. So we're going to dive right in. So tell us a little bit about yourselves. Tell us one thing that folks on our team would not know about you guys. Something that maybe, that you've done in your past or you've been a part of, or something that...
Together?
No, it can be totally separate. So it can be you alone. As a matter of fact, I'd prefer that.
Yeah. Wow. I'm trying to think of anything spiritual. Can't think of a darn thing.
Well, it doesn't have to be. It can be anything. Just
I went skydiving.
There you go.
Yeah, with my 78-year-old mother.
Wow. What?
I made her go first.
Right.
And then it was just a pride thing, obviously, because if I hadn't gone, my kids would have made fun of me for the rest of my life.
Amazing.
So when was that?
Would have been
4 or 5 years ago
4
now.
years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will never do that.
Me neither.
Really? I
Well,
would
you know,
totally do that.
the first step is the only hard part. After that, you're kind of
After that,
you're at the mercy of God.
Actually, you said numerous times that you felt safer after you jumped out of the plane because
Oh,
the
yes,
plane was
then
pretty
the plane was
rickety.
It's
scary.
like balsa wood.
Yeah,
Well, if something bad happens, you can just jump out.
right. And I was kind of happy I was attached to another gentleman who knew what he was doing.
Right.
Yeah.
And they always say, if the parachute doesn't work, it's not the fall that hurts. It's the sudden stop at the end.
Right.
Yeah.
Actually, my parachute didn't work. He had to pull the second parachute.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Oh, that's
Another reason
gosh.
why I would never do that.
you have confirmed
The amount of fear that would be in my
right.
body if that thing didn't go up.
Right. So you
I'd
are
probably pass out.
gutsy.
I hope I would
And
pass out.
How did you talk your mom into that?
No,
is
my
the big
mom talked
question.
me into
No.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, because she's like, I'm one step away anyhow, so it's
Yeah.
not a big deal for
See
me.
this thing on my foot? This is from trying to keep up with my mother. Yes. She's got
That's
more energy than the
hilarious.
whole room. Yes.
Wow.
She does.
How about you,
Top that,
Tom?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't top that. No, I can't. Actually, nothing is readily coming to my mind as an individual. I mean, but one thing that we have done a fair amount of together over the
dear.
years is doing singing telegrams. I mean, you back up the clock, 30, 40 years ago, and that kind of was like a novel new thing that was out there that was a legitimate business that people were, you could hire somebody to write a singing telegram. And so we just, Wendy and I looked at each other and said, hey, we could do this, but we only wanted to do it for people that we know so that you actually have dirt on, because the best singing telegrams basically are a musical roast.
Yeah.
In our former church, and then it kind of spread a little bit beyond that, but in our former church, we kind of became known as, we want to humiliate, somebody in the church wants to, in fun,
Roast.
humiliate and roast somebody. Well, they'd get us to, to write something, and we'd show up at compromising times in their life to,
Or in compromising places with compromising outfits.
I've heard about the outfits.
Yeah.
Unfold that just a little bit
Yeah.
for us. I think our people would
I don't
love
know
to
anything
hear
about
that.
the outfits.
Right.
What do you mean, outfits?
Well, you would kind of dress up in character or something.
What kind of characters, Tom?
Yes. Tom was.
Well,
Tom
I was popular for being a cross dresser.
He would borrow certain negligee items.
He's not
of
wearing
mine.
a cross. Let me just say that.
And we
Just to be clear about this.
Right. And we'd walk into restaurants dressed like that. Yes.
That
It was-
hilarious.
Kind of makes me blush now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so if anybody has video of this, we would love to get our hands on it, So you guys have been married now.
For 40 years.
This past weekend
Yes,
was
sir.
40
Yeah,
years.
June 28th.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about married life, being married for 40 years. Your grandparents now, you've got a handful of kids and a handful of grandkids, and just walk us through, what, especially being Christians, what do you guys see? Still 50% divorce rate out there. What do you see that are the important things for being married and having it? I would say when I see you guys, I mean, everybody has their ups and downs and stuff, but it seems like you guys have a really healthy marriage. You enjoy each other, you love each other, you have fun with each other.
Well, they said we had 300 minutes on this podcast, so we can really get into the
Right.
dirt. So.
Right?
We have been just so abundantly. We're happy. I adore this man. I did from the minute we started dating.
it.
Not always some of the things he does, but I adore the man. And we've been blessed. I think we chose well. Does that make sense? Yeah, at the very beginning.
I mean, he did for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, amen to that, brother.
I had certain things that I was going to marry a godly man who presented himself as a godly man, and I searched, I looked for that. Now there were things, when I first met him, he had this guitar case, and it said "fragile," and I was like, oh my gosh, who does this guy think he is? He would always play for the Christian group that we attended. It was called Reach Out, and he'd come in with his little fragile guitar
Was
case.
the guitar fragile, or was that a sign for you?
It
That
was a
like-
sign, yeah, right.
Right, it was Tom himself.
Yes. And then I was very humbled that I found out it was because he toured with this Christian group and did amazing things like smuggle Bibles behind the Iron Curtain, and
Yeah, amazing.
And then I was like, I guess I should talk to him. And God kind of put us together. We were both fresh out of a relationship and in the I refuse to date period.
Yeah.
And that I was in a liturgical dance choir, and they needed a guitar player. And
Wait, liturgical dance
is that?
choir. There's three words that don't seem like they would
Liturgical
go
dance.
together well.
I got to play for 40 dancing young ladies. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, you
Who
volunteered
wouldn't-
for that.
I felt led. There was a deep call from the Holy Spirit on my life, baby, to accompany 40
Right.
dancing women.
Yeah.
She said, "When you do this, let me pray."
yes,
Yeah. I didn't even need to pray about it.
Yeah.
I knew instantaneously.
Jesus.
What's the pay? I mean, how much
Yes.
do I need to pay you to be able to do this? Whatever it is,
Yeah,
I'll
pretty
do
much.
it.
Yeah, it's pretty much.
Oh, that's
But
wonderful.
That's kind of where we met, and we just started hanging. It was one of those weird things. I needed a date for a sorority dance, and he looked safe. I knew he had just been out of relationship. I was like, this is cool. And that was in April, and we were engaged in September.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, that kind of broke all my old rules in terms of, wanting to date somebody for a long time. And yet, while we were at school, we were involved in the CCO, Coalition of Christian Outreach Ministry. We went to Westminster College. And the CCO worker on campus was based out of a local church in the town of New Wilmington. But the pastor of that church, he basically invested 9 months of his life in pre-marriage counseling for us. And I think when we possibly, I don't know, I've never asked him this question, but at first I wondered if, it was a chance for him to, we could be kind of a guinea pig with a lot of the material that he had developed. But also, if I was him looking at us walking in, having not dated for very long, well, I'm going to make sure these people are right for each other, or I'm going to break them up. But yet that investment in that pre-marriage, I almost hate the word. The word counseling sometimes has this I don't know, just aura about it, and it was like 9 months of pre-marriage mentoring.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it, so it was, I mean, everything from the personality tests that many people are familiar with now to, of course, now we're backing up the clock, 40, plus years when we're doing this. And we always had homework to do every week. And sometimes the homework was, done on our own, and you come together and you don't share your answers. Some of it, you do as a couple, and then he kind of walks you through it. But I can't tell you how many times, especially in the first 5 to 7 years of our marriage, when we'd have other peer friends that had gotten married, and we were in friendships now as married couples, and you'd see the things that they were wrestling with. And we'd look at each other afterwards, and be by ourselves and said, man, I am so glad we talked about this before we got married.
Yes.
And even those, maybe you don't come to a consensus, on, what that issue was, but it's not the first time that you're you didn't just ram your toe against the bedpost
Right.
unknowingly. I mean, you're kind of aware, okay, this is an area that maybe we don't see eye to eye on, but you allow each other. It's not like we're not talking sin and no sin. We're just talking about loving each other and living together with one another and allowing each other grace in areas that maybe left to our own self might rub us the wrong. Over time, it's like the pebble in the shoe. Mm-hmm. You notice a pebble in your shoe and it doesn't, it kind of bothers you, but you leave that in there for a couple of years and it rubs raw.
Yeah.
So I mean,
I am your pebble.
That's right. You're the pebble in my shoe, babe.
There's a song there. Ready
Yeah,
to be
that's
born,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but the investment that that pastor put in invested in our lives will live generationally. Because we made all of our kids do it, and in some cases, paid for outside counselors.
Yeah, wonderful.
To do it because
We
just thought that was the most that could be the most precious, long-lasting gift that we could ever give them.
Yes.
Was a solid foundation in their own marriage.
Yeah.
And if they felt that, do you think they felt like it was a very positive thing in general?
I've heard them refer to it.
Yeah.
I would say maybe especially our daughter who had walked through a pretty rough time, and we really wanted to have that assurance that they had at least been in contact with some of the concepts and the biblical concepts.
Wonderful,
And
they had an extra piece of the pie to their relationship because they're it's a multiracial relationship.
Right.
So it's there's another
sort of
wrinkle.
just a biracial. There's only two of them.
I'm sorry. There's only two of them.
That's a good point.
Sorry, I'm giving you a bad time.
Pebble in
I
your
really
shoe,
do
bro.
like him.
You're on a roll, babe. Keep it up. Stay hot.
Oh my
Stay
gosh.
hot.
Okay.
So if you were saying to somebody on our team who was single and looking to get married, and you had say like one or two things that you'd say are really important before you have the I do, that's one of the things that you would say is very important.
Absolutely.
And anything else that you'd think of that would be like very important?
I know one of the things we stressed with our kids was your wedding is a party. It's nothing more than a party. Marriage takes place after the party's over, and there's no more cake, and there's no more flowers, and there's no more pretty. It's work.
Yeah.
And it's good work.
Yes.
Sometimes the hardest work is the best work, but so I think just expectations.
Yeah.
I think a lot of young couples go into it thinking, oh, I'm getting married, and then all of a sudden real life hits.
Yeah.
It's hard work.
There are some issues with cake in marriage that I've got to say.
Cake is good. Cake is always good.
And that's a whole nother discussion. After marriage, many of the folks on our team are married. What would you guys say are some of the most important things, just having a successful marriage for 40 years?
I think for us, one of the most wonderful things is to be able to serve together. And it was kind of a commitment that we made early on in our marriage. It was kind of like things are going to get busy. We had at the beginning both careers, and our children came a little quicker within the marriage than we thought they were going to come. And so all of a sudden
I thought they were going to come. They came just when you wanted them.
It's probably true. And I would have probably had more, but he was like that.
Not probably.
But, yeah.
You would have. You just would have lost me. But
Yes. Well, that's what I
trade-off.
always said. I'd have another one, but I'd lose my husband. But you made me lose my train of thought.
I'm sorry.
Tom. It was just that there's so much time being spent for careers, for our home, for our children, for those kind of things that we didn't want our service to end up just being another one of those things where, oh, you're out on Thursday nights, well, I'm out on Friday nights, and I have to go minister this night, and you have to go. So we were so excited and blessed to be able to serve together.
Yeah.
We had this thing that we loved doing together. Tom would play, I would sing. We could, even before we were leading worship, we were singing at weddings and doing the music for youth groups and that kind of thing. But we kind of made a commitment right up front that that would be something we would do as a team, not necessarily separate. And that has blessed us with, an ability to grow together that way.
No, that's something there's only one couple on the team that I think that really serves together. Although there's several like parents and kids, which is really a neat
That's
generational
very
thing.
special.
I love that.
Very, very special.
What would you say though for somebody who's not serving with their husband or wife? How would you say what would be an important thing for to do to keep your marriage fresh and healthy?
Date night.
Okay.
We did a lot of dating.
Kids came. We were married 6 months and learned that Wendy was, pregnant, and after kids came, everybody knows that has children, and we all do in this room. It's an incredibly wonderful thing, but it's not all that uncommon that a parent pours all of their energy and attention and everything into their kids, and to the detriment sometimes of themselves and to the detriment of their marriage. Because at some point the kids they're going to grow and they're going to be gone. And I just one of the thing that was I was just very cognizant of that. I'm the youngest in my family. I grew up in a not the most pleasant of home. I grew up in an alcoholic home, and it was pretty tough for a lot of the time. But being the youngest, there was a real effort by my parents to just hang on to Tom, because once Tommy went out the door, then Mom and Dad were just stuck with themselves, and they did not like how that looked at all. So the longer they could clutch onto me, and growing up in an alcoholic home, the first thing I ever wanted to do was get out, which is part of the reason why I started touring. And when I had an opportunity to audition for a group based out of California, and I was going to be gone for 3.5 months. Are you kidding me? Where do I audition? Where do I have to go to audition? Because
almost as good as the liturgical dance girls. Yeah, right.
It would have been. The ultimate tour would have been me playing for 40.
Right, liturgical dance. Yeah.
So anyway, I'm another rabbit trail. My wife's poking me that I'm getting off topic here. Which I tend to do. Whatever shiny things I see, there my brain goes. But anyway, that moms and dads, folks on the team. Date your spouse. Find time to continue to nurture and develop your marriage. I think one of the best gifts you can give your kids is a healthy marriage. When they see mom and dad love each other, when they see mom and dad have fun together, when they see mom and dad joke around together, when they also can see mom and dad screw up, and how does Dr. James Dobson used to talk about, lessons aren't so much taught, they're caught. And that always resonated with me. So, it's one thing for me to verbally teach my children what a contrite heart is, and asking for forgiveness. It's another thing when they've seen Dad at not his best moment screw up, and then can go, if the offense was with Wendy, or maybe the offense was to them, maybe I just blew up at them. They caught me at the wrong moment, and I just responded poorly. I went to them and said, you know what, guys, I'm sorry. I need to ask your forgiveness. I reacted poorly, and I'm sorry. That's so sometimes not that I tried to screw up, but sometimes when I did mess up, I was thankful for the fact that I could go to them and ask for forgiveness, and they could they could see what that and experience what that looks like. I mean, lots of smarter people than me have talked about how, we get our view of God is so often shaped by how our relationship was with our Father, and so hopefully I've certainly modeled that imperfectly, but anyway.
That's good. That's good. Well, that sort of is a nice transition for us to jump in on the end of this session. We'd like to talk a little bit about your background of worship and where you came from, what you've done. So you were talking a little bit about the group that you were in, that you auditioned in California, and you were doing some stuff overseas. Give us a quick rundown of who that was and what your experience was like with that.
Well, the name of the group was Continental Singers or Continental Orchestra. It was a Christian organization, nonprofit, non-denominational. Basically, they were kind of the precursor of a lot of the contemporary Christian worship music that that we now we're all singing in church. But I did that for 4 years. Well, 4 summers, so they were like 3+ month.
Was that while you were in college or before college?
You had to be 16 years old. I auditioned when I was 15. I was the first 16-year-old to get it. To be accepted. So,
wow, that's exciting.
Yeah, and I learned about it. There was a great bass player who was actually an early Christian mentor to me. I came to Christ in high school through the ministry of Young Life, but there was a bass player in our high school, very talented. Ended up going to Duquesne. Did everything he could do in Pittsburgh, went to LA, and he's had a wonderful career as a studio musician in LA. But he was kind of my pre-Christian idol. I mean, whatever John Baker thought was cool, then I was all about it. And if he thought it was worthless, then obviously I didn't need to spend any time thinking about it. Yeah. He kind of paved that path, though, because he did that after his senior year in high school. So, I'm a couple years behind him, and of course I go to see they were somewhere in Western Pennsylvania, and we went to go see him, and after the concert they mentioned, hey, they'll be taking auditions, and if anybody not that you're going to audition on that spot there, but if you're interested, pre-internet, you got to come up and put your name on a piece of paper that got handed in, that somebody kept, and you hoped it didn't get lost. Yeah. So that's kind of how that's where that started.
And for those of you who don't know, there's a guy named Brother Andrew, and he was very famous for smuggling Bibles. And there was a book called The God Smuggler, I think it was. Is that the name of the book?
I think so.
It's out of print now, but if you can still find it on Amazon, it is well worthwhile reading this book. It's an amazing book of God's faithfulness and grace, and some miraculous stuff too. So it's pretty incredible. But you got a chance then to go overseas and be a part of an organization that was smuggling Bibles.
Yeah, the tours that I were on were basically it was 2 months in the States and 1 month out. In my case, on 2 of the tours was a month in each respective summer in Europe. One was in Central America. But yes, this was 1975, I think it was.
Aging us.
Yeah, for sure. Graduated high school in 1976, bicentennial class. Go Upper St. Clair Panthers. But yeah, the group was invited to come and perform in Poland. Of course, this is
behind the Iron Curtain.
This is behind the Iron Curtain. This is communist Poland, and I don't know if this is a fair statement. The only church that I was aware of at that time was recognized by the state was the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
So we actually had a formal invitation by the Catholic Church to come and perform in the different cathedrals throughout Poland. And we were allowed to sing and say anything we wanted inside the church. Once we left the church, we weren't allowed to talk to anybody. We had to go straight to our hotel, and if we were walking around, of course, again, mid-70s Poland, I mean, no one behind the Iron Curtain. I mean, we were like rock stars just for the fact that we were Americans. I mean, seeing somebody, a U.S. citizen, behind the Iron Curtain was just, I mean, that just didn't happen. Everybody wanted to try to buy our Levi's because they heard about Levi jeans, but they could never.
Came off of that tour with no pants, is that right?
Yeah, pretty much.
But he made like $500. Right.
He had a lot of money, but no pants.
Totally worth it.
Yeah, so, I had tidy whities, but I felt comfortable. It was okay.
So Wendy, tell us a little bit about your church background, especially your worship leading stuff, and maybe some of the differences you've seen with how you grew up, what you saw as worship, and what we do in contemporary worship today.
I was raised in a pretty traditional Presbyterian church. God bless you.
Bless you.
And I remember I was in a choir when I was 6. We did the junior choir thing that moved into the choir thing, but I did a lot of choir singing just growing up. I think my dad was a super talented man and beautiful voice and a natural born worship leader. And I grew up waiting for him to sing "O Holy Night" on Christmas and "The Holy City" on Easter, and it would take me away. And he would do hymn sings, and he was powerful and charismatic and energetic, and so there was always this root in me of, wow, that's such a cool way to share your faith. And my dad had a rough health kind of situation for most of his life. So he was not healthy and he was not well. But the thing that never went away was that core of loving Jesus and wanting to sing. And until the very end, we have a recording of him. It was like his last time singing. It was one of those two. I don't remember which was, but so that was always in me. And then we were at a church where, again, it was a very traditional church at that point. And one day the pastor called us into his office and he said, "God is calling me to move to a more blended, a more contemporary kind of worship," which that was during all the worship war kind of thing. And you're thinking, ooh, that sounds kind of scary.
Just in a sentence or two, describe what that is for folks who are younger and don't know what that was.
It was kind of this transition for people between this very traditional kind of hymn singing church.
By an organ.
With an organ, very traditional, and moving into doing more of the contemporary kinds of songs that we would do now, or learning how to mix them. And people who were traditional were very, very traditional. They wanted it to stay that way. And maybe some younger people or some people who were a little bit more willing to feel and have an emotive kind of component to their worship, they were excited to do something new. And so he said, "This isn't going to be easy, but I have been really praying about it, and I feel like we're supposed to do this, and I feel like the two of you are supposed to lead it." And we kind of looked at each other like, oh.
You're a young married couple?
Yes,
yeah,
right. We had...
Do you want us to what?
A couple, yeah.
Right.
And we were in a church that had a component of people that we knew, probably my parents a little bit among them, who loved the hymns and loved that form of worship. So we were like, let's pray about it, and we did, and we decided to take it on. They sent us to a Willow Creek conference. Yes.
Interesting.
And that was where we really got our first taste of leading worship, I guess you would call it.
Yeah.
And so we came back and we started this, and it was
Which church is this? Was it North Park?
This was North Park.
Okay.
Long time ago.
Wonderful.
And and it was difficult. We had petitions and people coming to our house and saying, you can't do this. We would have people sitting in the first 3 rows of the church.
Not standing and
Sorry,
singing,
North
not
Parkians.
singing.
We love you all. We really do. But they would just,
Oh, it's so tough.
it was really difficult.
For those of you who don't know, it's over by North Park.
Right.
It's a wonderful church.
It is a wonderful church, and we
great
love them all
And
dearly.
it does
Yeah.
not look like that
No,
today.
it does not.
And backing up the clock.
Right.
Most churches in that era went through that same
Right,
transition.
exactly.
Where there
It
were
was very
fights.
common.
And some of the fights, incidentally, were things like rock and roll music should not be played in
Right.
church. It's the devil's music.
Right.
And even drums, they would say it goes back to like African voodoo stuff and things that you heard all
Yes.
these sort of
Oh,
crazy
yes.
things that
Yeah.
were the real fight of that
Right.
era.
And it was hard because this was these people's heart. They weren't trying to be mean to
Right.
it was a little mean, but it was they were hurting. They were
Yes.
hurting, and that was their way of expressing that they just didn't feel like it was reverent. Some of the other songs. So we were really involved then from that point on.
But what led you to make that decision? You said you prayed about it. Like, what was it? Because, like, is there some people will point to, like, oh, no, this is the biblical way to worship, or this is
Right.
this, whatever. What led you to be like, okay, I'm going to step in and do that?
A lot of it was the conference that we went
Yeah.
to at Willow Creek. They sent us down there, just said, take it all in, let us know what you think. And we got a visual of what it can look like. And I think we always kind of had this vision of, we don't have to abandon the hymns. We love the hymns. We can mix the hymns in too, and that can all be part of, a really kind of neat worship experience. So we sort of dug in and just kind of got through those times. And at first, it would just be very simple, Tom and I leading, and it was a wonderful time, but a really difficult time. And then just kind of it continued, and
Take me through we only have a couple minutes left on this segment, but very quickly, if you could summarize, what do you think is the strength of the hymns and the strength of contemporary worship? How do they hit and affect in different ways?
I think the hymns are great theological teachers. They are grounded in the word, and a lot of them there's such strength in the lyric that we don't give it enough credit for, maybe.
Yes.
And I love that about them. They're solid. They're most of them are just solid, and very much the whole pattern for me was always in planning worship was always, is the song to God or about God? And the hymns were solid.
Both of those.
Right.
Well, and when you think about it, like any form of music that you have that you've had enough time to sort through the music of the good and bad,
Right.
It really does make an impact. And that's why, classical music, all of the repertoire is great repertoire, really.
Right.
I mean,
Yes,
every
right.
single song that the PSO plays is going to be a great song because it's been vetted. Most of the jazz standards that you hear now, same thing,
Right.
like I'll have people come to me and say like, my kids will say like, I love 80s music. And I always say, you didn't live through the 80s. The 20 songs that get played on the radio are fantastic, but all the rest of the stuff with the hymns, they've been vetted. I mean,
Right.
the hymns that survive and are in the modern day hymnals, I'm sure there were a tremendous amount of terrible hymns that
You're right. Yeah.
came out, but the
Right.
ones that we have really, theologically are typically very strong,
Right.
and musically have some really strong
Stand
stuff
of
with it.
the
When you go back, you go back in time. A lot of the hymns were written 100, 200
Yeah.
years ago.
Right.
Not everybody could read.
Yeah.
So one way to teach the Bible
Right.
was to teach them a song.
Yes.
And so when you got 3/4 of your congregation they can't read,
Yeah.
and that was you go back to we go back to a church several hundred years old, and you look at these beautiful stained glass murals. Well, that in our 21st century mind, we look at, oh gosh, that's a beautiful piece of art. Well, that was a teaching, because there was usually there was a story being told
Yes.
by what's on that window.
Yes.
But the cool thing then, I think, about some of the more contemporary music, I think we have to be very lyrically choosy, but there's an emotive thing there. There's now we're in a conversation to God. There's it can be a prayer, it's a communication, and it allows us to have that solid theological firm foundation, but take it, I think, to a level of loving God and connecting with, by the Spirit, connecting to Him and talking to Him, being able to feel, not just memorize or or have these concepts that we're trying to remember, but be able to feel and then connect with each other as a body of Christ, and then connect really as a prayer to God. So I love the combination.
That's wonderful. And that's probably a good breaking point for us for this segment. We'll jump in. We're going to continue this conversation on the next one, so we hope you join us for it.